I'm going to hire Joe for my next resume. He makes it sound so much better. Awesome. Well, I know when you come to an OpenStack private cloud conference and Microsoft guy gets up on stage, the first thing that comes to your mind is, what the hell? What is this guy doing up here for? Well, let me answer that question. I'll try to do it in the next 20 minutes so we can all go have a beer afterwards. Oh, there are beers at 10:20, right? It's afternoon somewhere. But we can have that conversation afterwards. The key thing that you want to understand about us is, while we are a public cloud provider, we're very different than the other major public cloud providers out there. We actually believe that long term, there is a need for resources and assets outside of the public cloud. We do not believe that you're going to move everything into the cloud. We do not believe in the great sucking sound that I'm sure you've heard from vendors with 3 letters in their name, that all applications will go there because it's cheaper, all applications will go there because it's bigger, all applications will go there because everybody else is there. That's not reality. What we have realized and what we are heavily focused on with our strategy is that this is going to be a hybrid world for as long as we can see a future going forward. Anyone who doubts that? Do you believe that there are no more mainframes in the world? Sorry, there are. There are reasons that we will be hybrid, and it is not purely for the one I just mentioned. It's not purely because there's a bunch of legacy code that frankly can't move anywhere, let alone move to the cloud. We're going to be hybrid because we are building applications that need to have compute capability everywhere. And we need to be able to build those applications to take advantage of the right compute capacity and capabilities where it is most appropriate to do that. And that's what we need to pay attention to. When we talk about hybrid, this is not about public cloud versus private cloud. They're both going to exist. They're both going to exist for a long time going forward. This is about the applications you're designing. And how can you get the best experience for your customers? How can you get the richest and most robust experiences built into the application? And where should you do the right analytics? Where should you do the right gathering of information? And when we say where you should do this, it is not purely because this is the cheapest place to do it. It is not because this is the biggest capacity that's out there. There's these things called regulations that are going to require that data stay in certain locations. There's these things called privacy, where certain people are going to say, that data is going to stay with me. You might be able to query that data, but I'm not copying it to you so you can query it. So you're going to have to really pay attention to application design. And if you don't have all the options of being able to compute in the end device, in a gateway, in a data center, in a specific geography, as well as be able to take advantage of the public cloud as sort of a back-end capability for all of that, you're going to fail. And you don't want to fail because you had a great idea, but you restricted yourself to a certain infrastructure strategy. You want to be able to put it wherever it makes sense. And that's a big part of our strategy. So while we're heavily moving as rapidly as we can to provide everything that Microsoft does in the public cloud and as a public cloud service to you, we realize that there is value in having those same assets on premise. Which is while we are moving very rapidly to move all this stuff up here, we're also very quickly looking at and saying, which services that we have built in the public cloud would people actually like to have somewhere else? Say, on their own premise, running on top of other platforms. If we can empower that and we can make that happen, we're going to do that. And that's a huge part of our overall strategy. So this is not about us trying to move up to the cloud, and it's just going to take years to get there. This is about recognizing that the world is, and for as long as we can see, will be hybrid. And this is a big recognition that we're finally starting to see from a lot of organizations. I'm very happy that we have sort of walked away from the period in which the IT department says, we don't have a public cloud strategy because we're building a private cloud. They've quickly realized the line of business already left and went to the public cloud. And for them to be able to say, you will pull that back and you will put it into my private cloud is not a winning strategy. Now almost every CIO we talk to has a hybrid strategy. They are doing something private. They are taking advantage of more than one public cloud and significantly more than one SaaS applications and business services like Twilio and others that they're tapping into that reside in the cloud as well. And we're seeing this come across in survey data that you see like this, and I'm sure you saw plenty of it yesterday as well, that organizations are realizing that their strategy is not private versus public, it is to be hybrid, and they are doing this because of the applications and what the applications require. Now, what's Microsoft doing in this regard? We're doing everything so that it empowers this hybrid model. When we talk about security, we want you to be able to have the same security model, whether you run things on-premise or you run them in the cloud. We want you to be able to have a single pane of glass view to your applications wherever they're running. That's why with our Operations Management Suite, we support AWS and we support OpenStack. You should be able to put these applications anywhere and have one view and one way of understanding that this stuff is protected. It is disaster recovered. It is backed up. It is working the way it's supposed to work. All of those capabilities are why we built that tool. Then if you look at our applications, you look at our database architectures, you look at everything else we're doing, it's also meant to do this. If you heard about SQL Server 2016, that was released earlier this year, it is an inherently hybrid architecture. You can purely run it on-premise if you want, no problem. But if you want to spread it between the public cloud and your on-premise resource, you can do that as well. You can actually set a backup point or an archive point in your live database, and we will take data that's older than that period of time, and we will move it up into the cloud. But we'll keep the index local, and we'll keep the queries local. So you have the ability to have on-premise a smaller footprint for a very, very large database, and be able to do all the queries, all the scaling, everything you would need, knowing that the majority is sitting up in the cloud, and I'm saving significant money and significant management as a result. So this is a huge part of our strategy, is to be able to allow you to do the right kind of functions with our technologies wherever you want to run them. And when I say we're serious about this, here's the full portfolio. Notice here that all of the things here are hybrid. From applications to identity to integration, whatever the case, we have vested heavily in making sure you can run it wherever if it makes the most sense. Now, the other thing that we have realized is that one of the big reasons people want to use the public cloud is because they want to ensure that their data is going to be protected. And we've seen a big shift in the cloud security mindset. When I first started covering cloud for Forrester Research before I came over to the vendor side, all the focus was keep the data on-premise because security is a big problem for us. Now the mindset is I have to have my data to be secure as possible. I'm putting it in the public cloud because I've realized that Microsoft and the other vendors actually can do a better job securing the applications. They can do a better job of meeting the regulatory requirements and the compliance requirements that I'm under than my own IT department can if we try to run it on-premise. That shift has made it so that you can now put more things into the public cloud for security reasons, and that has gone away as a #1 reason not to put certain things in the cloud. Now again, this is not about the grand sucking sound. This is a shift in what you can and cannot put in the cloud. So it shifts away from you can or cannot put it in the cloud because of security. That goes away. To now, I will put into the cloud the things that fit economically, scalability, architecturally, and I'll keep the things on premise that do not. And I'll put things in new locations because it's most appropriate that they go into those locations. I no longer have to worry about security as a reason not to put certain things in certain locations. And this is something we're investing heavily in and have invested in for a very long time to make sure that we are the most compliant cloud and the most certified cloud out there. And we will hold to this as long as we possibly can. Now, let's talk about the reasons. Since security is no longer at the top of the list, what is now the new reasons that people say, I don't want to move things to the cloud? Well, the ones that you see here indicate an application-centric mindset. And this is what we're hearing very clearly from our customer base. I am putting things on-premise because they need to run here. I'm putting things in other locations because I am never going to allow that location to have its internet connection go down and it's not functional anymore. I'll give you two simple examples that come directly from our customer base. We have manufacturers who have huge factories that are building products, and they cannot have their internet connection go down and the factory stops running. And the factory, in most cases, is entirely driven by robotics. So the robotic control and the machine learning they do to ensure the robots are moving as efficiently as possible, that all has to happen right there. And that is why, in the factory, running all of these systems, they have put OpenStack underneath and are running all of the systems on top of that so that they know when that factory loses its connection, it keeps going full time. Another one in our space. This one probably sounds pretty familiar, especially Joe can relate to this one. One of our customers said that I really don't want my airplanes that are up in the sky to have a Wi-Fi connection in order to talk to a machine learning cloud so that I can determine if we're actually on the right path and if any of those sensors that are going off inside the plane really need me to do something about it. Can you just imagine sitting down the airplane and the pilot comes on the line and he says, hey, I've got some sensors going off. I know it's been a little rough out there. We lost our internet connection. I'm not really sure if we should do anything about it. So please get into a crash position just in case. Now, you might see that on certain airlines like Sky or somebody else like that. Spirit might do something like that. But I think most of us are going to be a little uncomfortable with that model. So that's why we are really happy that there is compute capacity in the airplane. So it can take that sensor information, it can do the right things. That's not moving to the public cloud. I don't care how many things in the sky Google places up there. I don't care how many balloons go up and so forth. No one's going to change that model. That's really important. The Internet of Things is a good example of that as well. Like an airplane is now becoming the Internet of Things. Your car is becoming an Internet of Things. Your Fitbit, of course, is an Internet of Things. And on the industrial side, they're taking all the industrial equipment out there, and they are empowering it with the ability to have its own compute capacity in addition to its own sensors. Because they want the devices at the end to be able to take action on information that's coming in from there. And there's also a big move in the IoT to put gateways in place. So maybe I have 1,000 sensors in a field where they are building out crops for the next coming season, and they want all of those little machines out there to gather the information, and they want to take some action on what they find. I don't want to go off the field in Brazil all the way over to Sao Paulo into a cloud facility, run my machine learning just to learn that the water is not working on 20% of the field. I should make that decision on the field. And that's why gateways are going in place. And gateways are computers, and they have to do the right kind of calculations as well. That's going to be the new model going forward. We don't have typically gateways right now. We don't typically have IoT industrial fields right now. When those happen, that's not a grand cloud connection point. That is going to happen locally in all of those facilities. The other thing we have to keep in mind, and I mentioned this at the very beginning, is the right functionality at the right location. And a lot of this comes down to the examples that I've been giving, where I want to have the functionality in the field, I want to have the functionality in the plane. We can all relate to this in our own personal experiences. How many of you like using Siri or like using Cortana or Google? How well does it work when you are in airplane mode? Isn't that ridiculous? If I'm asking it a question about something where it has to go do a Google search, that makes sense. But if I'm asking it, hey, my next meeting on the calendar, is it in building 6 or in building 5? Shouldn't it be able to answer that? Shouldn't the functionality be in the device? That's the right kind of compute in the right location. And that's the kind of shifts that we're starting to see as well. I should not have to have an internet connection at all times, even though we have a tendency to take it for granted. I don't know how many of you travel internationally. Do you take it for granted when you're in Latin America? Do you take it for granted when you're not in a major city in India? Yeah. That's where a lot of this is going to be driven from. And so we have to build applications that put the right compute capacity, the right element of machine learning, the right amount of gathering of information and collection in response to that information in the right location. And that's going to be the key going forward. The other reason we may start to see more and more hybridization over time is going to be trying to get the economics right. And a really classic example of this that's gotten a lot of press of late is Dropbox. Dropbox quickly realized building out that incredible storage service that they have and paying Amazon an hourly rate to store all that information in S3 was not the most economical way to do it, especially because they didn't really consume S3 just as it was. They had to put a lot of software and capability on top of it to get the value they were looking for. Well, they realized we could actually do this better in our own data center with our own storage capacity. And we're going to see quite a bit of that as well, because there is a certain economic model associated with public cloud. Some applications are not optimal for that. I think somebody here wrote a really interesting book called Cloudonomics. Was it you, maybe? Which talks exactly to this point. And you should be really thinking about that with your application design. What is the right economic model for the applications you do? If you build up an application in the public cloud that requires 600 of the largest virtual machines that are out there, and it sits there consuming them 24/7, that was a dumb decision. Now, I would be okay with that. Feel free to use ours. But I'd actually like you to be a more happy customer that you are using the resources efficiently and effectively. And if that means taking that application, moving it over to OpenStack on-premise, still running it on Windows and Hyper-V would be awesome with me. That would be fantastic. And if we've made you happy, and we've made you more satisfied, and we've helped you empower an application that puts the right application capabilities in the right location, everybody wins. And that's what we care about at the end of the day. So let's talk about this new hybrid world. We all know this picture. This is what everybody has said the old hybrid world was. I have the ability to do private clouds in my data center, have the ability to do hosted private clouds in Rackspace and other service providers, so I don't have to own the data center myself. I can put this in an Equinix or Digital Realty Trust as well. And then I have the public cloud. That was sort of the three pieces I needed for the cloud for my strategy to work effectively going forward. The new world of hybrid actually is a bit more complicated. We have the basics that we talked about before, but we have a whole bunch of other things. As I mentioned, we have endpoint resources, we have gateways. So when you start thinking about the new hybrid cloud, you need to be thinking about everything that makes up your application experience for your customer. And what can I take most advantage of in what location? That's what you really want. Because this is going to give your customer the best experience, which is going to make you the most money, keep them the most loyal to you, and make your CFO the most happy. And that's what this is all about, right? Well, it might have something to do with stock prices doubling and things like that as well. So let me show you an example.
The U.S. healthcare system is challenged by the task to deliver exceptional, personalized care at a lower cost. Despite spending nearly 1/5 of our gross domestic product on healthcare, we struggle to meet this goal. Financial pressures on care providers are increasing. This isn't sustainable. So how can we deliver high-quality, personalized care that patients deserve, given the cost pressures we face? At Dartmouth-Hitchcock, we've created Imagine Care, a new cloud-based solution built on Cortana Analytics Suite and Microsoft Dynamics that enables providers to help patients achieve better health. With the help of Microsoft, Dartmouth-Hitchcock is building a technology platform to serve healthcare organizations and patients across the country, setting a new standard for personalized care. Now, using machine intelligence, providers can develop a care plan that's unique to each patient. We can monitor patients from their homes, where data is collected from devices and sent to the cloud, to Imagine Care's 24/7 contact center, where registered nurses continually monitor a patient's health status and potentially serious trends.
Cortana, summarize health status for Ben Andrews.
Ben Andrews' weight has increased more than 2 pounds in the last 24 hours. Please review the home diuresis protocol prescribed by Dr. Phillips.
Patients get reminders and encouragement and dynamic updates to their care plans, improving their health, helping them avoid unnecessary trips to the emergency room, and reducing the cost of care. With support from loved ones and real-time interventions, there is less likelihood of readmission. With Cortana Analytics Suite and Microsoft Dynamics, we're transforming the way healthcare is delivered today, improving patient outcomes, reducing costs, and offering an unprecedented level of personalized care.
So what you just saw right there is a new service that they're delivering out that is inherently hybrid. Now, those of you that work in the healthcare industry or you've sold things into the healthcare industry realize that healthcare is not the fastest movers to the public cloud. They want to gather and collect a lot of that information and keep it in the hospital or keep it near the hospital. And inherently, that solution is hybrid. It takes advantage of the data centers that they run on premise, and it takes advantage of the cloud for what's appropriate. So what does it actually do in the cloud? Well, it takes a lot of the information that is being gathered from patient devices outside of the hospital. So if the patient wears a Fitbit, if the patient is getting alerts on their phone, have you taken your medication yet? Yes, I have. If they have a home healthcare worker who comes in and sees that they've done their physical exercise, they've eaten the right food, oh my gosh, he had a seizure today, they can denote all that information, and it goes up to the cloud first, and it goes up encrypted. The whole time it goes up there. And then it sits in a HIPAA-compliant storage repository. And all of that sensor information then goes into the Cortana suite, which uses machine learning to analyze the information, identify if there's any patterns here that need to alert either the nurse or the doctor, and then it sends that information over to Dynamics, which in the case of Dartmouth Health is running on-premise. And it says to the dynamic system, alert the doctor of this, alert the nurse of this, update the person's schedule so that it shows that they have been keeping it up, so I don't have to alert the doctor that this patient actually is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it allows them to then do analytics inside of Dynamics on premise for what's the best way to contact the doctor right now. And what's nice about this is that it's designed so that it not only is it doing the right computing in the right location, but it's also not Microsoft technology only. So as you saw on there, someone was getting an alert on their iPhone. As you saw, somebody was using a Fitbit, not using one of the Microsoft bands. Because the other key thing about hybrid that we all have to recognize is hybrid is not just about location. Hybrid is about programming language, operating system, device, and that is a huge part of our overall strategy. So while we made the mistake years ago of calling Azure Windows Azure, this is not Windows only. This is embracing all platforms, and as you've seen with Satya as our new CEO has said multiple times, we're embracing multiple platforms. We're open sourcing our own technology. We're bringing our technologies over to Linux. We're embracing all the languages that are out there because we not only have to be able to talk to workloads that run everywhere, not only do we have to allow the mobile experience to whatever device is out there and support all the protocols in the IoT world and all the protocols being used for device integration and API, but we have to make it so that you can develop your applications using whatever language you want, on whatever platform, and you're going to be productive working with us. And that's why openness is a huge focus for us throughout the entire platform that we've put together. So I hope that you will see, as you think about your own applications going forward, that there's a way Microsoft can help me deliver these things. But even if you put us aside, which I know some people in Silicon Valley like to do, build your applications hybrid. Put the right functionality in the right places. Make the decisions about platform based on what the application can benefit the most from, not because we're a Google shop. We are an OpenStack shop, whatever your thinking is. That is part of your story, not the whole story. Embrace the whole story. Make your customers successful so they'll embrace everything you deliver to them. Thanks so much for your time. I think we have a break after this, but we got about a minute or so for any questions before we go into the break. Does anyone have anything that they would like to throw out? Please. Around? Good question. What's Microsoft's strategy around containers? It's very similar to as I described with Open. So on our platform, we support Linux containers, Hyper-V containers, and Windows containers on our platform. We're the only ones who actually have all of that. And we are embracing Mesos, Swarm, and Kubernetes on the platform. Whatever you're using to manage, maintain, and work with your containers, you can bring it to our platform and be successful with it. And we also support containers on top of Windows Server on-premise and top of Hyper-V on-premise as well. Yep.
About Azure Stack.
Uh-huh.
Is there any going to be any collaboration with OpenStack community or not? It's just It seems it's being completely a separate stack today.
Yeah, so Azure Stack, if any of you aren't familiar with this, we used to have a service inside of Windows Server called Azure Pack, which allows you to use Hyper-V to do IaaS on top of that. That is still available in the market, but it is not the same as Azure Stack, which he just described. Azure Stack was actually designed for a different purpose. What we heard from a lot of our customers was, we really like some of the cool platform as a service capabilities that you guys are building in Microsoft on the public cloud, but we have applications that require some of these resources on-premise as well. We would like to not have to design them in a different way and re-architect them to be done on-premise. We'd like to be able to build them this way and then make the decision back and forth between them. So can you take some of your PaaS services and can you bring them on-premise? Well, the fastest and easiest way for us to do this is to put it on top of the same infrastructure service that runs inside of Azure Public Cloud. And so that's the initial design of Azure Stack, is to make sure we can bring these PaaS services over and give the customers a really clean, simple experience. We have heard from several customers who said, can you bring those services over, but let me choose my own IaaS level? That is something we're certainly thinking about. We're talking to a lot of customers about. It is not a decision we've made yet, but it is certainly something that if that's important to you and to your customers, the more we hear it, the more likely it shows up on the roadmap. There's nothing fundamental or philosophical that is holding us back from doing that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Really
thanks for your
appreciate
time.
it.
Thank you, sir.